Hello guys, this is your friend Shinobi Addict 2.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto becomes dark after Sakura and Sasuke betrayed, part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Sasuke-kun, please I will do anything. Please just be with me. Even if that means taking me with you. I just want to be with you. Sakura pleaded with her teammate and crush. Sasuke looked back at the pink-haired girl who professed to love him enough to leave the village with him. He was about to deny her outright, but then he cocked his head and analyzed the situation. Maybe a follower who would do anything he said would be good. Orochimaru should be able to train her to be at least helpful. Okay, Sakura, you can come with me. Sasuke ended up saying. Sakura's face expressed her surprise, and then, her joy. She immediately set off after her love. Sakura and Sasuke disappeared into the night. Chapter 1. Next day. Man, lunch sure was good today. Naruto yelled out. Thanks, old man. Your ramen always hits the spot. Naruto said while laughing. Naruto left his money on the bar and walked out of the ramen stand. Walking down the street, Naruto decided to go see if he could find his teammates. After over an hour of fruitless searching, he was starting to get annoyed. Naruto had checked Sasuke's and Sakura's houses and neither was there. He had checked their typical training ground and even a couple of restaurants. He couldn't find them anywhere. He finally got lucky and spotted Kakashi-sensei walking down the street, book in hand of course. Hey, Kakashi-sensei! Naruto yelled out. Kakashi looked up to see his most unpredictable genin running towards him. Kakashi sighed as that meant he would have to stop reading his Ika, and he had just got done with that mission too. Kakashi-sensei, have you seen Sakura-chan or Sasuke? I mean I already checked their houses and everything. Sakura-chan's mother even said that she hadn't shown up last night. What if something happened? Naruto exclaimed when he got in front of his sensei. Kakashi started giggling perversely as his mind went into overdrive at the information his genin just told him. Maybe Sasuke finally decided to sample the offering, he thought lewdly. Unfortunately for Kakashi's fantasies, he remembered Orochimaru's parting words to him. Sasuke-kun will come to me. He will come seeking power. Slightly concerned but still hoping for a perverted ending, Kakashi decided to check at a couple of discreet places to see if he could round up his missing students. First he had to deal with his other student who seemed to be jumping around everywhere. Oh yay, I have been silent for like 2 minutes. That is way too long for Naruto to sit still. Kakashi thought with a sweat drop. Don't worry, Naruto. I will go search for them right away. Though, you might not like the outcome. With those wise words of forewarning, Kakashi went off to hopefully find his 2 genin. Naruto looked at his sensei's back in confusion. What the hell did that mean? Shaking his head at his strange sensei, Naruto went off to continue his search. There were still some places he had not checked yet after all. Hours later, Kakashi was starting to get extremely worried. Worried enough to go to Tsunade to find his missing students. He had searched hours without a sign of them anywhere. No one reported to having seen them since yesterday. As Naruto had said, Sakura's mother said that Sakura hadn't even come home last night. What really worried him though was that some of Sasuke's things were missing from his house. Kakashi knew that couldn't be good. Tsunade-sama, Kakashi said when he came before his leader. I believe it pertinent to send out shinobi to look for Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno. Both seem to be missing with no one knowing of their whereabouts since yesterday. I have also confirmed that some of Sasuke's things are missing from his house. I believe the worst, Kakashi said with despair. Tsunade was slightly shocked. She knew that Orochimaru had gotten his grip on the Uchiha's mind, but she didn't have a clue why a girl like Sakura would be with them. She almost thought they were off on a tryst, but Kakashi wouldn't have come in without ruling that possibility out. She pondered for a moment before making a decision. Kakashi, Take Chunin Shikamaru and Genin Naruto and search along the route to the land of rice. If they really have left, then we are way behind on getting them back. I want you gone in no less than 20 minutes. Tsunade ordered. Hi, Tsunade-sama. Kakashi saluted before body flickering away. Tsunade rubbed her hands against her eyes as this new disaster promised to be embarrassing for the village as a whole. To have the Uchiha leave the village and no one was the wiser would be a hard blow to Konoha. Many of the daimyos had specifically came to the last Chunin exam just to see the boy. If the information got out that the boy left without anyone knowing about it, then Konoha would be a laughingstock to other nations. She decided to end her headache like she did all the others. She dragged her sake bottle from out of the drawer and proceeded to get drunk. Kakashi quickly rounded up the people Tsunade assigned on the mission. Naruto was there for sentimental value in hope to convince them to come back. Shikamaru was there for his capturing abilities as well as his brain. They left the village with 5 minutes to spare. Of course, Kakashi hadn't yet told Naruto why they were going on an A-rank mission. He couldn't stand to have that headache on his head right that moment. Naruto wouldn't be happy with the news, to say the least. After traveling miles through the woods with no clue at where they were going, Naruto's curiosity finally got the better of him. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto called out. Where are we going? And why did we have to bring Shikamaru along? Naruto asked with a very confused look on his face. Well, Kakashi began. He just knew this wouldn't end well. Tsunade-sama believes that Sasuke has left the village to search out Orochimaru. Our mission is to try and retrieve him. The only problem is that we are hours if not a full day behind. Shikamaru is along with us because of his family's unique jutsu that will allow us to capture Sasuke if we happen to run into him. Kakashi yelled out to a Naruto who was dropping farther and farther back. Naruto eventually came to a complete stop as he tried to process the information his sensei had just dropped on him. His mind went blank for a bit as he tried to wrap it around the idea of Sasuke willingly going to some freak. Ha ha, Kakashi-sensei. You must be joking, right? Naruto pleaded when he caught back up to the duo. Kakashi and Shikamaru had not stopped when Naruto did. Shikamaru was surprised himself. He didn't have any clue at why Sasuke would go to a missing nin, but for whatever reason, he knew that it was not good. I am sorry, Naruto. All the evidence points towards Sasuke leaving. Also, Kakashi slowed down his pace as he delivered even worse news to his student. It seems like Sakura went with him. As soon as those words left his sensei's lips, Naruto's world crashed. His beloved Sakura-chan had followed the Tem to some freak. No, she couldn't have. Kakashi-sensei, please stop kidding around. Naruto begged with tears in his eyes. Sakura-chan and Tem both would never do something like that. Right, please tell me you are lying, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto yelled. Tears were flowing down his cheeks as he acknowledged within him that the girl he loved had betrayed the village. Had betrayed him, just to follow the Tem. To follow Sasuke. Naruto let the tears flow freely as he finally recognized the fact that he would never go out with Sakura. Now all that was left was to catch up with them and find out the ultimate truth. Naruto suddenly sent a surplus of chakra to his legs as he sped up greatly. He was going to find the both of them, and Naruto really didn't know what he would do when he caught up with them. As he agonized over these thoughts, more and more red chakra was flowing around his legs. Naruto's speed went faster and faster. Shikamaru was stunned. To find out Sasuke had left the village was bad enough, but to find out that Sakura left with him. And they both went over to a missing nin from Konoha. If he heard that story on the street, he would laugh it off as a good joke. This situation was utterly ridiculous. Shikamaru couldn't wrap his head around the fact that Sakura was that enamored of Sasuke. The dude was a brooding bastard who hardly ever said a word. How any girl could betray everything they ever stood for that was beyond his understanding. Naruto, slow down. We are setting a fast pace anyway. You don't need to burn extra chakra to go even faster and leave us both behind. Kakashi yelled out. By now, Naruto was already a good 100 yards ahead, and he seemed to just be pulling farther away. Kakashi sighed in frustration as Naruto paid absolutely no attention to his words. He pumped extra chakra into his legs as well and just hoped that Shikamaru could keep up. The three sped off into the forest hoping to find the duo before they passed the border. After an hour of extreme running, they got their answer. They were too late. When they finally reached the Valley of the End, the sight that greeted them was of Sakura and Sasuke, along with 4 others, standing on the statue of Madara Uchiha. The world which crashed earlier for Naruto was shattered. He had initially hoped that everything was a big misunderstanding, but now he could see the truth. Sasuke had left, and Sakura had followed. His Sakura-chan who he had always adored. His Sakura-chan who he had always admired. His Sakura-chan who he had professed his love to. All of that was betrayed. All of his love and admiration and care was betrayed. For him, Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke. Naruto roared out. And it was a magnificent roar. Backed by the Kyuubi's chakra, what would normally be a loud yell was turned into the roar of a beast. An angry beast that wanted only one thing, revenge. Sasuke and Sakura looked back the way they had come in surprise. What confronted them was not an animal like they had first thought but their sensei and teammate. Raising his eyebrow, Sasuke gave a condescending smirk at what he already considered his past. He was already beyond the losers of Konoha, and he wouldn't let them take him back. He finally had the opportunity he had always wanted. He could finally achieve the power to kill his brother. Shouldn't you losers be back in Konoha chasing a kitten or something? Sasuke asked condescendingly. Sakura, at his side, really just wanted to leave as she wasn't 100% comfortable with leaving the village yet. That feeling had only been reinforced when she met the escort for their trip. They had thrown a lot of scorn at her for being useless. Sakura's eyes narrowed though at the thought of her Sasuke-kun. She would get strong. She would surpass everybody, except Sasuke. She would be useful to her love. Sasuke, Sakura, get your freaking asses back here now. Naruto yelled out with rage. Shikamaru was slightly surprised. He had never seen Naruto this mad. He was kinda expecting Naruto to start either frothing at the mouth or just rush in an attack. Naruto must be really shaken up to be this mad. I wonder though, what is with that red chakra that keeps gathering around him? The Dobi thinks to order me around. As if. Sasuke yelled. I can finally get what I have always wanted. With Orochimaru's aid, I will finally get the power to destroy my brother. I will finally actually move forward instead of that stupid crawl I was moving at in Konoha. Sasuke ranted. I mean look, I started out so much stronger than you, but you kept getting stronger and stronger while I gained nothing. Not anymore. I will finally gain the strength that has always been my right. And no one will stand in my way, Naruto. No one. Kakashi's eyes widened at the rant of his student. He winced in pain at the message, but he was honestly surprised at just how bad the boy had gotten. Konoha should have actually done something for the boy instead of the Sandames, it will take care of itself, plan. Hindsight showed that that was the worst possible plan the village could have taken. Leaving Sasuke to himself after the massacre only ended up pushing him away from Konoha. Sasuke. Kakashi called out. He had to try even if he thought it would be hopeless. I am sure the Hokage can forgive you and Sakura if you come back now. If you continue attempting to leave though, I cannot guarantee what will happen. Kakashi warned. He really hoped that the two would give up without a fight, but he seriously doubted it would happen. The 4 with them also gave him pause. Orochimaru would only have sent his best. It also didn't help that Orochimaru's people looked perfectly rested, while Shikamaru was probably almost out of chakra from the forced run here. Go tell your precious Hokage that we probably won't meet again. I am following my own path now, not Konoha's. Sakura has elected to join me. Any last words to our past, Sakura? Sasuke asked to his teammate. Sakura looked at the two people she had come to finally care about. She then looked to Sasuke, who was her only love. She had told him she would do anything. She was going to follow that promise to the end. Kakashi. Naruto baka. Sakura yelled out. This actually feels pretty good. I never knew talking down to people that had authoritative privileges over you at one point in life was so much fun. I am going to become powerful as well. Next time we meet, if we do, Sasuke won't be the only powerful person. I will be a shinobi that will put fear into the hearts of others through my mere presence. Later. Losers. Sasuke had to laugh at the looks on everyone's faces. He knew that he made the right call in bringing Sakura along. She was totally devoted to him, and she was totally devoted to strength. She could become a real asset later when he hunted his brother. She also had an unique way with words. All six suddenly left the statue they had been standing on and disappeared into Rice Country. Shikamaru saw Naruto fall to his knees as the boy started sobbing. Then Kakashi came behind him and put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. Shikamaru could make out what appeared to be tears flowing from his eyes as well. A team was torn beyond all recognition. The last words between people who had become almost family were words of hate and scorn. Kakashi, who had problems in his past, and Naruto, who had problems throughout his life, were both left reeling as their bonds with Sakura and Sasuke were broken so easily by the duo. All the teamwork principles Kakashi had taught, abandoned. All the camaraderie between them, broken. Naruto and Kakashi's world, shattered. They left the Valley of the End broken. What would come from this breaking would alter everything. Shikamaru could only look on at his friend's pain because ultimately, they had arrived too late. Sasuke and Sakura were already gone from Konoha territory, and they had already torn Konoha from their hearts. A week had passed since Sasuke and Sakura had left. A week of laying in bed and thinking of all the things they had done together. Reflecting on where it had all gone wrong. Naruto was glad of the food baskets that were left at his door by Shikamaru and Shoji, or he honestly might not have eaten at all. Naruto was trying to literally rethink his whole life because, obviously, he had done something wrong. The one thing that Naruto had absolutely concluded was that he was too weak. He had to get stronger. Naruto didn't really understand what he was going to do, but the second thing he concluded was that he was going to beat the shit out of Sasuke and Sakura. Whether he would attempt to bring them back to Konoha was very questionable. The thought of just killing them actually crossed his mind. If anyone knew that Naruto thought of killing someone, they would immediately laugh. They would say that Naruto doesn't even know what killing meant. They would be dead wrong. The shattering of his world and the breaking of everything he thought he knew had really changed Naruto. The personal betrayal of Sakura to follow Sasuke, Naruto's teeth started grinding at just the thought of it. Really put the betrayal of the village by both of them into perspective. The girl he loved, spat on him. It was as easy as that. She had not only spat on him, but she had spat on her parents, friends, and every soul that depended her inside of Konoha. Sasuke had done the same. Ninja were supposed to protect their village and the citizens of said village. Ninja were supposed to protect their fellow ninja. Ninja were supposed to protect the lives of the innocent. Sakura and Sasuke ignored all of that to go to a freak who had been caught killing and experimenting on the people he was supposed to protect. After this realization on the third day in his room, the duo's betrayal hurt all the more for Naruto. Naruto was trying to put the pieces back together on his life. After they had arrived back in Konoha a week ago, they had gone to report their findings to the Hokage. She expressed her sympathy to both remaining members of Team 7 and gave them a couple of weeks off. She had ordered Shikamaru to tell the other genin the news. Shikamaru had told him of how the others acted when he came to deliver a food basket on one of the days. The rookie 7 were devastated. Ino supposedly hadn't been left her room in days, much like Naruto himself. The others were despondent. They couldn't believe that people they considered their friends had left to join the same person who had just invaded Konoha. It was despicable. The duo totally ignored all the people crying and hurting from dead mothers, dead fathers, dead siblings, and a dead Hokage. Naruto had already heard that Kiba had thrown himself into training. The dog boy was already determined to make sure Sasuke fell by his hands. Naruto had also heard from Shikamaru that the shinobi of Konoha were pissed. The boy that many had put their hopes in to erase the stain of having an entire clan wiped out by one person by killing that one person, had gone rogue. It left many people with bad tastes in their mouths. It only got worse when they found out that he had betrayed Konoha for Orochimaru. Naruto found it somewhat funny that people were now calling the Uchiha, as a whole, a cursed clan. They said that nothing good came out of the clan and were glad it was gone from Konoha. Naruto figured that it was mostly bitterness talking, but it was still ironic to hear. On the 8th day back in Konoha, Naruto finally left his apartment. The first place he went to was Ichiraku's ramen. He definitely needed his comfort food at a time like this. Walking the streets to the ramen stand, Naruto got the feeling that something was different within the populace of Konoha. He just couldn't put his finger on it though. He banished it from his mind when he arrived at the ramen stand. Going in and sitting quietly wasn't his usual style, but he couldn't work up the enthusiasm to put on a big smile for the owner. Naruto quietly told Ayame to keep the bowls coming. He was in the mood for a binge. After his 7th bowl of ramen, a small smile appeared on his face. After his 10th, the smile grew larger. After his 13th and last bowl, the smile was at its usual wattage as Naruto had shoved all thoughts of Sasuke and Sakura from his mind to enjoy the greatness of ramen. Naruto pondered thoughtfully that ramen could easily be used in torture. Deny people ramen, and they would flock to tell all they knew. What Naruto himself didn't realize was just how much damage the betrayal of the duo had left on his mind. He was thinking of using ramen in torture for God's sake. The thought of killing the duo was also very prevalent in his thoughts. Naruto passed all this up as just a common occurrence, but, was it really? Leaving the ramen stand, Naruto ran into the one man he had wanted to find. Leaning against a pole that helped support the stand was Jiraiya, one of the members of the Sannin. Said to equal, if not surpass, Orochimaru. Naruto knew that if he ever wanted to take on Sasuke or Sakura, he would need the teachings of someone powerful. Jiraiya was that guy. Ero Sennin, Naruto said softly when he stopped in front of the man. Please take me on as your apprentice. Teach me, please. Naruto asked with all the courtesy he could muster. Jiraiya looked at the young boy who had been a loudmouth just a couple weeks ago. Now Jiraiya did not know what way Naruto would go. It seemed that the betrayal of his friends had done what war could not. It had changed him. Jiraiya wondered if Naruto would ever smile and laugh with all his heart again. Jiraiya, himself, knew what it felt like to be betrayed. It still hurt him to this day. Naruto, I know how you feel. Jiraiya started. Orochimaru was once my best friend. My brother. We had worked together for years. When he betrayed Konoha, it was like my heart was shattered. Jiraiya stopped to collect his thoughts. He wanted Naruto to see just how close their situations were. I tried to bring him back, you know. How I tried. Sadly, nothing worked. Sighing, Jiraiya looked at the Hokage mountain. When he continued, his voice was even quieter. Orochimaru disappeared for a few years, and the next time I saw him, he tried to kill me. Me, his best friend, snort, or so I thought at least. It took me a few more years after that to realize that Orochimaru had no friends anymore. The only thing that interested him was power and jutsu. Jiraiya turned to look at the boy he would call his apprentice. Naruto. The pain you feel at their betrayal is probably worse than mine when Orochimaru betrayed me. Unlike me, both of your teammates betrayed Konoha, but more importantly, they betrayed you. It hurts, doesn't it, Naruto? The pain of shattered bonds. People who were once friend, once family. Gone by their own will. It hurts. Jiraiya put his hands on Naruto's shoulders. He looked him directly in the eye before continuing. The question is, what will you do with that pain? Will you lash out? Will you betray others? Or will you turn that pain into power? Will you work day in and day out to become stronger? His voice gaining strength and power, Jiraiya continued with passion. Yes. You will not give in to that pain. You will not give in to that hurt. You will overcome it, and you will get stronger. And stronger and stronger. Nothing limits you, Naruto Uzumaki. Become the best. Take this pain as a lesson. Take these feelings and never let them come into your life again because you're so damn powerful. Who would betray you? Naruto looked at the man in front of him. Tears in his eyes, smile on his face, Naruto looked at the man in front of him. Ero Sennin, you truly are an amazing person. One day, I want to be as powerful as you. I will take your advice, and I will use this experience to help me along. I will not stop, and I will not let up. I will become strong, no matter what. Naruto hugged his new sensei. Ero Sennin, thank you, Naruto whispered while giving the man the biggest smile and hug he possibly could. Jiraiya just smiled. This was truly a feeling he had been missing most of his life. The feeling of being hugged by one who could be considered a son. Jiraiya knew he hadn't been hugged like that since Minato was 13 and had just seen his first taste of death. Jiraiya's words that day had quite possibly set Minato onto the path of greatness, just as he hoped his words this day would set Naruto onto the path of greatness. Pulling Naruto back out to arm's length, Jiraiya gave the kid a once-over. Nodding his head, he started laughing. Okay, kid, time for some training. I want you to go pack what you will need for an extended absence from Konoha. You and I are going on a training trip. Jiraiya yelled proudly. We will be gone a couple of years. About 2.5 to be exact. Over those years, I promise you that I will turn you into one of the strongest shinobi Konoha has ever seen. Just you wait, brat. Jiraiya said happily. Meet me at the gate in an hour ready to go. Smiling happily, Jiraiya walked off to make sure all the small details were taken care of with Tsunade. Naruto rushed back to his apartment with a smile on his face. Ero Sennin was a true inspiration. With Ero Sennin's aid, Naruto had gone from a moody boy with way too many thoughts on his mind to a happy kid, still with some overreaching issues, that was ready to get some serious training. Packing his bags in a hurry, Naruto focused mainly on underwear and socks. He knew that many of the supplies could be bought in different towns, but it would be better to wear his own underwear and socks at least for a while. Naruto had splurged slightly when he bought them after all. The end result had been that they were extra comfortable. Looking around at his apartment, it struck him as an incredibly lonely place to be at. He was actually glad to be leaving for a while. It was time for a change of scenery. The last thing he saw before closing the door was the photo of Team 7. Sakura's smiling face and Sasuke's brooding look both brought a frown to his face. They were gone, and Naruto believed that they were never coming back. It hurt, but he would move on. He would move on. Locking the door, Naruto left his apartment. He just hoped it wouldn't be too dusty when he came back. He raced over the Ichirakus to make sure he bid them goodbye. He would miss their delicious ramen. People just didn't make ramen like Ichiraku's. Something about the place seemed to just promote good taste. Oi, Ayame, old man, I came to say bye. I am going to be leaving for a couple of years, but when I come back, I will kick some serious ass. Naruto told the two with a smile. That's nice and all, Naruto, but who will pay for Ayame's pretty clothes at home without you here? Tsuki Mock exclaimed. I don't see how we will ever make it without your insatiable appetite for my fine cooking. Tsuki said with a laugh. Naruto laughed along with the old man and Ayame. It felt good to laugh. He hadn't really done any laughing in over a week. He waved goodbye as he jogged away. Making his way towards the gates, Naruto again felt that something was different about the citizens. Usually they seemed to ignore him or whisper behind their hands, but today was different. Naruto just couldn't really figure out how. Naruto found himself the first one at the gate. Ero Sennin hadn't made it yet, but Naruto figured he wouldn't be much longer. He wasn't Kakashi. That reminded him. He hadn't seen Kakashi since the report to Bachan. He hoped his sensei didn't go into some kind of emo depression or anything. The duo's betrayal was painful, but Naruto was going to use it to get stronger. Simple as that. Once more affirming his resolution, Naruto looked up to see Jiraiya walking towards him with his scroll on his back. Looking at his teacher from a distance, Naruto noticed something he really hadn't before. Ero Sennin was freaking tall. The man was a giant. Naruto really hoped he started growing. He would look like an absolute shrimp when they traveled together. Ready to go, Ero Sennin. I want to start my training as soon as possible. I will become strong. I will protect the people of Konoha. Naruto said with passion. Jiraiya had to admit that he liked this new Naruto slightly better, though the old one wasn't bad either. Naruto now seemed to think a little more before blurting out anything and everything that entered his mind. He also seemed to be a bit, or maybe a lot, more serious. Jiraiya looked around at the citizens who had overheard Naruto and were smiling at the boy. He didn't think Naruto noticed, but the boy was going to be in for a surprise when they got back. The citizens were finally starting to acknowledge him. Let's go, brat. I will even start your training as we walk. I bet you're going to be more powerful in no time. Jiraiya's voice drifts back to the citizens' ears as the two leave Konoha. It wasn't for another couple of minutes until their backs, one giant-sized and one shrimp-sized, disappeared from view. With Kakashi. Kakashi was in his house curled up in bed. He hadn't left since he got back. Cradling his knees in his hands, he was just rocking backwards and forwards. If anyone was around, they would hear the words, "I am a bad sensei. I am a bad sensei," repeated over and over and over. Kakashi was having some slight problems. It would take him the full 2 weeks Tsunade had given him off to break out of his funk. Once he finally broke out, he realized that being emo wouldn't really help the situation at all. Kakashi eventually decided, with the help of a nice, cheap psychiatrist, that becoming even stronger would be the best thing that he could do for himself at the time. Kakashi went into training with a vengeance. He was going to get his students back if it killed him. Back with Naruto and Jiraiya. Naruto grinned happily as they were walking down the road. Ero Sennin truly knew how to put him in a good mood. Naruto was determined. The time spent on this training trip would truly define him. He was going to create, adapt, and flat-out copy, with his own little flair, of course any jutsu as he thought would truly help him. He was going to become so fast and good that he would leave Sasuke in the dust. Nothing would be able to stop him. He was Naruto Uzumaki, damn it. Future Hokage. And when he got his hands on Sasuke and Sakura, they better start praying because, in him, they would find no mercy. Miles outside of Konoha, two men were walking. Well, it would be better to say one man and one small child. Naruto Uzumaki had just started the first training exercise his sensei had given him. The exercise was one of the basic of basics with a slight twist. All Naruto had to do was keep 35 leaves stuck to his body while walking and then running. Easy, or so Naruto first thought. Naruto was having a little trouble with the exercise. One thing was that every time he pushed chakra to his legs to keep up with Ero Sennin when they started running, it immediately made every single leaf fall off of him. The other problem Naruto was having was that he was having trouble keeping all the leaves on his when he was just walking normally. It was quite vexing. Ero Sennin, Naruto called out. I actually understand how this will make me better because my chakra control could use a tad bit of training, but isn't there some way I can speed this up? Naruto logically asked. Jiraiya almost did a double take when he heard the boy not whining for new jutsus. Yes, it will be a little difficult getting used to how Naruto is acting now. Well, Naruto, I am sure there is a way. How about you think of one? Jiraiya magnanimously offered. He couldn't keep the grin off his face at the angry look Naruto threw him. Thanks a lot, Ero Sennin. Always so helpful. Naruto griped. Naruto went back to attempting the exercise while they continued onto the town they planned to stay for the night. It took them another 5.5 hours to reach it because of their slow pace. Consequently, it was dusk when they reached the cozy little town. Surprisingly, Naruto had made good progress on the chakra exercise. He could at least hold all the leaves on him while walking. Many still fell off though when he started applying chakra to different parts of his body in large quantities. Getting into their room for the night, Jiraiya decided to run over the training schedule he planned for Naruto to learn over the years with him. Pulling out his notebook, previously used for his porn ideas, Jiraiya went over all his notes before sitting down. He gestured for Naruto to sit across from him on the opposite bed. Naruto, I think now is a good time for us to go over what you will be learning in your time with me. At Naruto's serious nod, Jiraiya continued. I am planning to shore up all your basic skills first thing. That means I am going to get your taijutsu up to stuff as well as make sure you can dispel genjutsu. I am going to pound into your head strategy and tactics. No more rushing straight into things. You will have a plan at all times, and you will have a backup plan at all times. Jiraiya told the boy in front of him. I am also going to teach you how to customize your Rasengan to fit your needs. You might not have noticed, but people can dodge your Rasengan because of its small size. With your chakra reserves, I believe that size can be doubled, hell maybe even tripled or more. Last, I am going to try to teach you how to control the fox. When you get back to Konoha, you will easily make Chunin or higher. Jiraiya's got a huge grin on his face. So, what do you think of my awesome plan? He asked excitedly. Naruto thought of all his sensei had just told him. It sounded tempting to take the route arrow Sennin had laid out for him, but Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that it wouldn't be enough. He would need more power and knowledge than that to beat Sasuke. Hell, even Sakura would be getting a lot stronger. He couldn't just master the basics. He had to master the basics and then master the hard stuff too. He couldn't be weak anymore. It's not enough, arrow Sennin. Naruto stated with conviction. What you just told me will not be enough. Sasuke already is faster than me, plus he has all that elemental stuff. Sakura already has much better chakra control than me. They already surpass me in the things that you want to teach me. I have to push my training farther and faster than both of them combined. Naruto declared with his hands balled up at his sides. Jiraiya was quite surprised that the training plan he had worked on for a week was so quickly shot down. He was also surprised at the look in Naruto's eyes. It was a look of strength. Jiraiya had seen glimpses of that look from Naruto before, but this was the first time he had seen it so strong. When Naruto had told Tsunade that he would learn Rasengan in a week, this look had been in his eyes. When Naruto had faced down Kabuto, this look had been in his eyes. Naruto wasn't backing down. Rubbing his chin thoughtfully, Jiraiya pondered on what to do. Naruto wasn't budging on a different training plan. I could let the boy use shadow clones for some of the basics. That might work, or destroy his brain. One or the other. That would definitely solve the whole speed problem, but the question is, should I do it? Finally reaching a decision, Jiraiya decided to do it. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Jiraiya went on to tell Naruto of the Kage Bunshin's prime purpose. Naruto, the Shadow Clone Jutsu is not really meant for combat, though you have done a good job using it as such. The main purpose for Shadow Clones is for information gathering. Jiraiya explained. Naruto listened to his sensei, fascinated. He never knew that he was using his main jutsu wrongly. Kinda hurt his feelings that no one had told him how to properly use it though. Tuning back into his sensei after his slight inner musings, Naruto was further fascinated at just how amazing the Shadow Clone Jutsu was. You see, Naruto, Jiraiya said, shadow clones were used for information gathering solely because whatever a shadow clone learns, the original learns as well. Using this feature, along with your rather large chakra reserves, I believe it is possible to train via shadow clones. This path should cut out any whining you wanted to do because you're not training fast enough. Jiraiya said with air quotations. Naruto smiled slightly at his sensei's antics. I do have to warn you though. This method of training is very dangerous. Worst case scenario, your brain melts from too much information. Jiraiya warned. That's why the number of clones you use will be limited until I deem you ready for more. You are never to use this method while I am not with you. You understand, Naruto? Jiraiya asked in all seriousness. Who knew what would happen if the kid decided to send 1,000 clones to a library with each one getting a different book? Jiraiya shuddered slightly at the horror of that image. I understand, Ero Sennin. Naruto whispered softly. Naruto did understand. Ero Sennin was trying to help him get stronger. If the method of doing so happened to be dangerous, then that was the price to pay for power. Naruto was determined to gain power no matter the cost. Ero Sennin, I also think some of those elemental jutsus would be really good for me to learn. Those, along with a great increase in speed, should greatly help me. Naruto said. Then a complicated look came over his face. I am not sure, Naruto started. What exactly I am going to do to Sasuke and Sakura. Stopping and taking a deep breath, Naruto continued, but I know it will not be good. They betrayed everyone, and that I will never forgive. Naruto got off the bed and started pacing. I will become stronger. This I promise. Using that strength, I will protect Konoha. If someone betrays it, I will destroy them. This is my new Nindo. A Nindo of protection. A Nindo to stop betrayal, and if I have to do that by making an example of previous betrayers, then I will do so. I will do so. When I become Hokage, I will create a Konoha so powerful that no one will ever betray her. Naruto told his sensei with no wavering in his voice and no wavering in his heart. He was committed. Jiraiya looked at the boy in front of him. The same boy who had been a loudmouth prankster only months ago. The same boy who had previously proclaimed his desire to be Hokage for acknowledgement. This boy was now seeing the true ninja world. A world of gray with hardly any black and white. It was kinda sad, Jiraiya had to admit, but it also meant that there would be no breakdown later in life when Naruto realized the true state of affairs in the world. Jiraiya got up and walked to Naruto who had stopped pacing. Reaching out his hand, Jiraiya patted the boy on the head and he said, I will help. No more words were needed. Both sensei and pupil were in agreement. Next day, Jiraiya had initially planned to stick around and do a little research. After last night's conversation though, he decided to really push on Naruto's training. This led to the two leaving early in the morning after a quick breakfast. Going at full speed, Jiraiya led Naruto to a little clearing that was tucked deep within Fire Country. A spot overrun by nature and quite a ways distance from any nearby town. It was a spot perfect for a few months of extreme training before going on their way again. Dropping his bags, Jiraiya said, Here we are, Naruto. This is the place we will be staying for the next couple of months. I plan to have all of your elemental training as well as most of the basics covered by the time we leave this clearing. I hope you're prepared, Jiraiya said with a creepy chuckle. Because you're about to get 24/7 personal attention from a Sennin. Naruto got a slightly bad feeling at the chuckle. Ero Sennin didn't sound sane. I am sure it will be fine. I mean, what is the worst thing that could happen? Naruto's training began, and he couldn't be happier. From sunup to sundown, every hour except lunch was filled with training. They finished around 6:30 every day and had dinner afterwards. The creek was used to gather water as well as for bathing. Dinner and lunch were often animals that were caught either through traps or hunting. Jiraiya made sure that the first few days were spent specifically on survival. That meant Naruto had to set up their camp, catch their food, cook their food, create bedding, and ward off predators. Easy stuff for ninja, right? Of course, Jiraiya had to add the whole, keep Senbon attached through chakra, everywhere, part. Naruto got the hang of it though. He was also glad that Ero Sennin was showing him the finer points of cooking with only field ingredients. How this leaf did that and that leaf tasted like this were only a few parts of the intricacy of field cooking. After the whole crash course on everything survival lasting 3 days, Jiraiya had Naruto summon 10 clones on the 4th morning. 2 clones were assigned each topic Jiraiya wanted to go over. One set of clones went over tactics in battle. Another set went over strategy in war times and peace. Another went over economics, while yet another went over chakra control. The last set of clones was assigned to learning basic knowledge on anything Jiraiya thought of at the time. Of course Jiraiya had his own clones teach Naruto's clones while Jiraiya personally pounded physical training into Naruto. Sit-ups, push-ups, squats, running, pull-ups, taijutsu, muscles, and speed were all done by the originals. All day long the sounds of physical exertion could be heard from the clearing. The only time they stopped was during infrequent water breaks. Jiraiya was determined to get Naruto to a basis of low chunin within a month. Knowledge, power, speed, and ability were all wanted within a month. Jiraiya and Naruto were both intent on this goal. Jiraiya was very insistent on a better taijutsu for Naruto. He explained his reasoning on the 6th night. Naruto, your shadow clones are very versatile. If you learn how to henge them at the right times, you would automatically be very dangerous. If you set up a trap with hanged clones before the enemy even arrived, I don't see how you couldn't take down most people. That is why I am teaching you how to better incorporate your shadow clones into your taijutsu. Jiraiya got an excited grin on his face before continuing. I mean, think of it. You could henge into weapons or pieces of the landscape that could fool even the most observant ninja. Of course you would have to be on the lookout for sensor-type ninja, but those are decently rare. Hell, with your reserves and intuition, I wouldn't put animals outside your reach. Learning how to henge into multitude of animals would surely take enemy ninja by surprise. Jiraiya told an excited-looking Naruto while chewing on a bird. I never thought of any of that, Ero Sennin. Most of that sounds really cool thought. Naruto told the man with an animated grin. Jiraiya was glad to see Naruto so excited. The times the boy truly got happy nowadays weren't very often. I am your sensei after all. I do have to think of what to train you. Jiraiya replied with a smile. What I just listed were mainly trap purposes. You also have to consider creating shadow clones to block attacks. Creating clones to help you dodge an attack, especially in the air. Creating clones behind the enemies. I have personally seen you create hundreds of clones scattered throughout an area, and some were 50 feet or more from you. By the time you leave me in a couple of years, I will have you creating one clone 50 feet away from you. I am sure that any of these applications will be very helpful in combat. Jiraiya then pointed to Naruto who was seated across the fire from him. Jutsu are nice. The more you have, usually the more versatile you are. But there are some jutsu that the deeper you dig, the more you find. Kage Bunshin is one such jutsu. Now, Jiraiya shouted while getting up. Let's get to sleep, he said with a smile. Naruto's sweat dropped at the scene. What was the point of yelling like that to just go to sleep? The month passed quickly for Naruto. All day every day was spent training. He would make breakfast in the morning, eat, summon a clone to hunt for lunch and supper, summon 10 other clones to go off with Jiraiya's clones, train with Jiraiya. This included anything from getting the crap beat out of him to just working on muscle strength, eat lunch, train more, eat dinner, sleep. It was fun. The second month came along, and Jiraiya was proud to say that Naruto's physical abilities were all at least at low chunin level. His trap abilities though, Jiraiya just had to shake his head. Naruto seemed to take to traps like Uchiha did to fire jutsu. Easily. I guess it is a holdover from his pranking days. Jiraiya decided to start what he wanted to teach Naruto for the second month. All that was left to do was have the kid discover his elemental affinity. Good thing I have some chakra paper for seal work, or I could have been in a slight bit of trouble. Jiraiya went over to his bags which he had hardly touched since they arrived and searched through them until he got what he wanted. Pulling the chakra paper out, Jiraiya called Naruto over from finishing up his breakfast. Okay, Naruto. We are going to be doing things differently this month. I think you are around a low chunin in physical ability. Of course, with your high jutsu level, you could probably take on high level chunin. Using the fox, you could probably fight off Junin. None of that is the point though. Naruto snorted at hearing that. It was really easy to get Arrow Sennin off subject. And that was with no girls in sight. Sad. What I was saying was that this month will be devoted solely to elemental affinity with some physical training as well. Jiraiya clarified. To learn your affinity, I brought you some high-quality chakra paper. Enjoy, he said with a smile. Naruto looked at his sensei for a second before shaking his head. The man could be really absent-minded at times. Does he actually think I have any clue what he is talking about? I can guess what elemental affinity is, but what are they specifically? Stupid Arrow Sennin. Arrow Sennin. You mind explaining to me just what the hell you are talking about? Naruto asked in exasperation. Jiraiya's eyes widened a little. He had completely forgotten that Naruto was still not very knowledgeable about a lot of things. Naruto's new demeanor really gave off the feeling of some intelligence. Jiraiya was already forgetting that the Naruto from a month ago had absolutely no intelligence. The Naruto in front of him was already turning into a competent shinobi. Jiraiya was quite proud. Whoops, sorry, Jiraiya said while rubbing the back of his head in embarrassment. Elemental affinity is something that everyone has. It is either fire, water, earth, lightning, or wind. You will find it much easier to learn jutsu of your specific element. That is not to say that you can't learn other jutsu, just that it will be harder. Jiraiya then started expounding on the elements and chakra paper. You see, each element has a weakness and a strength over a different element. The chakra paper comes into the picture when a shinobi wants to learn what their element is. All you have to do is push your chakra into the paper, and the paper will do one of 5 things. Fire burns, water wets, earth turns to dirt, lightning crumples, and wind cuts. Here you go. Jiraiya handed Naruto the paper he had got out. Naruto took the paper with slight trepidation. He really didn't want some weak element, or fire. He had seen enough fire from Sasuke. Placing his chakra into the paper, Naruto waited for the paper to react. Dunda, dunda, dunda. His heartbeat seemed to fill his ears. Finally, the paper reacted. It was wind. Is wind good? Holding out the cut paper to Arrow Sennin, Naruto had to ask. Is wind any good, Arrow Sennin? He really hoped the answer was yes. A bad element would undoubtedly ruin his day. Jiraiya smiled at his student. He really wanted to lead Naruto along, but he figured it would be too mean. Sigh, the things I do for kids. Shakes his head. The wind element is sometimes called the battle element, so I figure that it is perfect for you. Just remember that wind cuts. That is what it does. It is your responsibility to determine what it cuts and how it cuts. Remember that in life. Naruto looked confused before nodding. He would remember the words. Jiraiya went over to one of the many trees surrounding the clearing they were in. He picked up a leaf before heading back to Naruto. Handing the leaf over, he could easily see Naruto's very confused look. Your first exercise on mastering your wind element is for you to cut this leaf using only your chakra. To do this, you are going to want to split your chakra into 2. Then grind the 2 together until they are both extremely thin and sharp. Lastly, apply the chakra to the leaf. I will allow you to summon 100 clones for this exercise. Let us hope you can get it in a week where we can move on to the second exercise. Begin. Jiraiya stated calmly before walking back over to the remains of breakfast. He decided to clean up for once. Naruto looked at his sensei before shrugging and summoning his clones. If he had a week to cut a leaf, then he would do it in 4 days. I will show everyone my power. I will move faster and farther than any other who has come before me. I will master wind manipulation to a degree that others can only dream of. I will show Arrow Sennin that I will surpass his expectations at every turn. Ero Sennin believes in me. I will not let him down. Naruto began his wind training. Before the month was out, Naruto mastered both exercise, cutting a leaf and cutting a waterfall, and before he even knew it, 2 months had passed since the two had left Konoha. Extra wind training and then off to the desert. They were finally leaving the little forest clearing they had stayed in for 2 months. It kinda annoyed Naruto because he felt like his training was just getting good. He would trust in Ero Sennin though, and hope that the next place they stopped would be even better. Okay, brat. Everything is packed up, and all traces of our presence have been erased. Let's go. Jiraiya comically yelled while swinging his arm forward. So saying, he took off at a full run. Naruto was caught completely by surprise considering his sensei never liked to run. Naruto quickly took off in pursuit. Catching up, Naruto adjusted his pace to match Ero Sennin's speed. The two traveled comfortably together as the miles passed under them. They soon ran out of trees and had to race across the ground. 3 hours after noon was when they finally reached their destination. The town they arrived at was beautiful, to say the least. Naruto had honestly never seen anything like it. Wow. Naruto breathed in excitement. Ero Sennin. This place is amazing. It is so beautiful. Naruto whispered while looking around in awe. The town truly was a pretty sight. Built on a cliff overlooking a lake, the city had many canals that formed into waterfalls as they fell into the lake. Most of the people seemed to travel by boat, and the sparkle of the lake and waterfalls could be seen clearly from the entrance. It truly was a beautiful sight. The two walked into the town of Aquava, hailed by many as the most beautiful town in Fire Country. They walked many myriad streets along with a few forays over the water until they reached a respectable-looking inn. Walking in, Naruto could immediately see why Ero Sennin thought of this place. Most of the servers were absolutely beautiful. Trust Ero Sennin to find the place with the most beautiful girls, Naruto thought while shaking his head ruefully. Once they reached their room, Naruto had to ask why they were here, besides the pretty girls of course. Ero Sennin, what are we doing here? Naruto asked curiously. I mean, I don't exactly see this as the place to do a lot of training. Jiraiya smirked. He just knew that his next training plan would totally blow the kid's mind. Jiraiya had devised this plan once he learned how quickly Naruto mastered his wind affinity. There happened to be a total of 14 waterfalls falling down into the lake below. Jiraiya's plan was to have Naruto, without any clones, cut all 14 at the same time. The sheer quantity of chakra necessary for such a feat would kill almost any person who tried. For people like Naruto and Jiraiya, however, it was possible. The only thing Jiraiya could foresee making this exercise not work would be the huge distance between all the waterfalls, and the fact that Naruto could only be in close proximity to one. This whole exercise was designed to force Naruto to create wind chakra so sharp and powerful that it would basically be an A-ranked jutsu in its own right. If Naruto used any shape transformation on such powerful wind chakra, Jiraiya shook his head chuckling, then that jutsu's power would most likely be a high A rank or low S rank. We're here because I want to be. Jiraiya told his apprentice with a smile. At seeing Naruto's slight pouting face, he had to laugh. Ha ha ha. Kid, you have to have some faith in me. What? Did you think I came here only because of the girls? Jiraiya asked rhetorically. At seeing Naruto's nod, Jiraiya developed a slight sweat drop. Well, you're wrong, brat. The exercise I am going to have you do is basically waterfall cutting, just on a gigantic scale. Jiraiya started smiling evilly while rubbing his hands. You, my fine apprentice, are going to be on the lake below. Your job? Cut every waterfall. At the same time, without clones, Jiraiya started cackling when he saw the look of horror on Naruto's face. Naruto was now sure. Ero Sennin was batshit crazy. There was no way that he could do that. Naruto had seen how large and separated those waterfalls were. It would be impossible for him to cut them all at once. The chakra requirements alone might not even be possible for him. Naruto starting thinking of any way he could convince Ero Sennin to see reason. Then he stopped. He closed his eyes before mentally berating himself. What the hell am I thinking? This is the perfect opportunity. This can easily be my first step in showing Ero Sennin just how powerful I will become in wind. This will be my first step to truly becoming stronger. I will master this exercise in no time. Naruto opened his eyes to give his sensei his answer. Jiraiya was moderately surprised, though he really shouldn't have been, at the resolve he saw in Naruto's eyes. Naruto was ready to start trying to cut all those waterfalls. I guess I should give it to the kid. I mean, hell, I wasn't really expecting him to be on board with this. I mean, he would have good reason to not do it. I was drunk when I thought of this training. Jiraiya thought with an inner embarrassed chuckle. I am ready, Ero Sennin. Time to take my wind affinity to the next level. Naruto shouted out. There is still some daylight left, so let's get our butts down there and start training. Naruto then ran out of the hotel heading towards the edge of the city. Jiraiya sighed. He had forgotten just how time-consuming it was to have an apprentice. Jiraiya slowly followed after his student with his head hanging. He had so been looking forward to making nice with all the ladies too. Naruto arrived at the edge of the city with Ero Sennin nowhere in sight. Looking down at his task, Naruto gulped. That's one damn big waterfall, and I have to cut all 14 at the same time. Naruto whistled, no time like the present I guess. So thinking, Naruto jumped down to the water below. Cushioning his impact with chakra, he immediately sent more chakra to his feet to stay atop the water. I guess I should summon one clone per waterfall and try to work my way down from there. Naruto mused out loud. Putting action to his words, Naruto summoned 13 clones, while he did the last one by himself. Once all the clones were in position, Naruto signaled the start of the exercise. It took only a few minutes for each clone to get warmed up and split their waterfall, but none of them could figure out how to extend their reach to include the others. Naruto sighed at seeing the result. He was just glad he had already learned how to split waterfalls, or he really would have had a hernia when Ero Sennin had told him about this training exercise. Naruto quickly dismissed the clones when he could tell that they weren't getting anywhere on solving the problem. Taking in their experience, Naruto sat down to meditate on a way to split all waterfalls at the same time. Diminishing the number of clones until only the original remained didn't seem to be the way to go. That would only leave for Naruto himself to keep increasing the chakra and quality of his wind cutting until all waterfalls were cut. Naruto bit his tongue, perturbed. To take that path would require a long time. Shaking his head ruefully. Well, that's why it is called a training trip, I guess. Naruto began again. This time he was by himself in front of the waterfall that was the closest to another. Summoning his chakra to his hands, Naruto began splitting it apart and then grinding it together. Satisfied that his chakra was suitably turned into wind chakra, he placed his hands before the waterfall. Naruto pushed the gathered chakra in his hands towards the waterfall. It cut through it. Keeping the chakra flowing, Naruto tried to extend the reach by gathering more chakra and turning that into wind chakra as well. Pushing past his limits, Naruto could see that his idea worked, sorta. He could see that the other waterfall was cut, but barely any of it was being cut. Jiraiya looked down on his student from the top of the cliff. He had to hand it to the boy. Naruto was seriously trying to cut 14 waterfalls at once. Naruto was also finding out the difficulty of extending chakra away from the body at great distances. It didn't help that this whole exercise was just a nature manipulation with no hand signs or any other aid to help make the chakra extend farther. Everything was totally dependent on Naruto's skill with wind chakra. Jiraiya just hoped the kid could do it. Hell, Jiraiya knew that he sure couldn't do this exercise. Jiraiya watched until the sun went down. He was going to call it a day when he noticed that Naruto was basically asleep on his feet. Another tapping his head while pondering the right word. Advantage of this training was the huge chakra cost. Naruto's reserves would probably be even larger as he continued trying to get this exercise down. Naruto's control of his chakra would also be much higher after all this. It was like two birds with one stone. I am such a genius, Jiraiya congratulated himself. Naruto woke up the next morning in bed at the inn they were staying at. He had no remembrance of coming back here, so he figured that Ero Sennin must have brought him back after he collapsed from his training. Shrugging it off, Naruto ran down to get some breakfast. He couldn't wait to get back to training. Arriving in the dining room, Naruto saw that his sensei was already pigging out on the food. After observing basic manners, Naruto too began eating. Finishing as quickly as possible, Naruto was about to run out the door before Ero Sennin called him back. Brat, make sure to leave 10 clones here. We can't have you slacking off in other areas while you practice your wind affinity, can we? Jiraiya asked with much enthusiasm. Naruto's eyes widened for a second until he started smiling as well. Yes, he was going to gain much skill in wind chakra, but he was also going to be getting stronger in other areas at the same time. He really loved shadow clones. 2 months 1 week later. Ha ha ha, Naruto panted. He had to smile. He had finally done it. After a full day of trying, he had finally done it. Cutting 14 waterfalls at the same time by himself. Complete. Breathing in and out deeply to catch his breath, Naruto looked to his side to see Ero Sennin walking up to him. He was clapping. Well done, brat, Jiraiya called out. You finally did it. I have to admit to being slightly impressed. Jiraiya praised. Naruto smiled up at his sensei. Ero Sennin didn't give out praise lightly. The man was a wonder to be around, but praise was always well deserved with him. That's why it was always a joy to be Ero Sennin's student. Thanks, Ero Sennin. Now we can move on to my next training, right? Naruto asked curiously. He had to admit to being glad that he could cut something like 14 waterfalls at the same time, but he wasn't exactly sure how that would help him when it came time for a real fight. Ah, but first, Jiraiya yelled in excitement. You have to realize what this training was for. I want you to come up with your own jutsu using the wind manipulation you just learned. You come up with the idea, I will teach you the necessary shape manipulation if it is needed. Though I should also say that the Rasengan is the ultimate shape manipulation. It is also an incomplete jutsu. If you added your wind chakra to the Rasengan, Jiraiya attempted. Naruto snorted at his sensei's obvious hinting. What Ero Sennin was mentioning wasn't a bad idea. It just wasn't what his recent training needed. Naruto knew that he had been training his wind affinity for long distances. The Rasengan wasn't a long-distance shape manipulation. He needed something new, something different, something powerful. Ah, that could work, Naruto thought excitedly as the perfect idea came to mind. But it would be quite difficult, and I would definitely need some harsh shape manipulation training. Naruto thought with a sour look on his face. I could always use shadow clones for this one though. Naruto thought with a brightening outlook. That look instantly went back to dark when he realized just how many shadow clones he would need. Naruto groaned, I can already feel all the mental pain from burst clones. Ero Sennin, Naruto shouted out, I have just the idea. Though I am going to need your help on learning how to do the shape manipulation right. At seeing Ero Sennin's nod, Naruto immediately headed back to town to collect their things. They would need a different environment to work on this jutsu. Jiraiya followed along with a perplexed look on his face. When did I become the follower? I am supposed to be the sensei here. Jiraiya thought with a pout. Once they got out of town and were on the road, Jiraiya just had to know where Naruto thought he was going. For all he knew, the kid was going to walk around randomly until he spotted a nice place. Yo, brat, where the hell do you think you are going? Jiraiya squawked as he saw Naruto start speeding up. Jiraiya really wasn't in the mood for running. Naruto looked back to see Ero Sennin running to catch up while scratching his butt. Naruto started choking with laughter. It was an amusing sight to be sure. Finally gaining control of his laughing, Naruto saw that Ero Sennin had caught up with him. Naruto decided to explain some of his thought process. Well, for my idea to work, I am going to need a lot of room. It would also be best if there are no obstructions. My idea is a long-range kind of thing. Since I am using wind chakra, anything in my way will be cut. Naruto explained. Jiraiya looked at the boy in front of him with an eyebrow raised. Naruto was awfully cocky to think that whatever was in his way would be cut. Then again, if what Naruto had told him about his final solution to cutting all those waterfalls was true, then Jiraiya could possibly see Naruto cutting most anything from his path. Naruto had ultimately decided that he literally couldn't cut all 14 waterfalls at once with his current level of wind molding. That was why Naruto decided to go back to the basics of molding wind chakra. Naruto theorized that if he could make the quality of wind chakra better, it would be easier to cut everything. It turned out that the boy was right. Naruto had worked long weeks on getting his chakra to grind together to a finer and finer line until finally he unleashed his result. It was quite a disturbing scene as Naruto was using around 800 clones, all of which were sitting down and focusing only on wind manipulation. Jiraiya would have sworn that he would never, ever see Naruto Uzumaki still like that for such a long time. To see 800 of him doing it, scary. Sounds like the desert would be a good place for you, brat. What say we head to Suna? If my recent informants are right, then you will be getting quite the surprise when he arrived there. Jiraiya said with a secretive grin. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he stared down his sensei. Ero Sennin wasn't talking though, so he eventually gave up trying to stare him down. It always annoyed him when Ero Sennin decided to get all hush hush. Sighing, Naruto continued walking. The desert of Suna sounded just as good as any other place. At least there, he would be able to visit Gaara. Master and pupil sauntered off to the desert. 6 days later, Naruto had to concede. His idea to go to the desert, bad idea. It was freaking hot in the desert. Not only that, Naruto was definitely not wearing the right kinda clothes to be traveling in over 100 heat. That was why he had already gotten rid of the upper part of his orange jumpsuit. The annoying thing was that Ero Sennin had thought Naruto was keeping up with it, while Naruto thought Ero Sennin was keeping up with it. The end result was that there was no more top to the orange jumpsuit. Naruto was stuck in his orange pants and a black shirt. Let's not forget, Naruto grumbled to himself, Ero Sennin just had to completely bypass Suna and take us deep into the desert. We're in the middle of freaking nowhere, Ero Sennin. Naruto suddenly shouted. I thought we would at least go to Sunagakur and visit Gaara. Jiraiya looked back at his suffering pupil. He smiled. The brat wanted to go to the desert, well he damn well was going to give him the desert. Before Jiraiya even thought about taking him back to civilization, Naruto was going to have a whole new level of physical fitness. Tut, Naruto. You did want to come to the desert to work on your jutsu, remember? Jiraiya asked sweetly. Naruto was going to kill him. He could already see Ba-chan's reaction. Where is that pervert? She would say. I would reply, I killed him. She would look shocked and then ask, why? He annoyed me, would be my perfectly logical. She would go into deep thought for a second, and then look up and say, perfectly understandable. Yes, Naruto could see it all now. He started laughing maniacally. Jiraiya became slightly scared from the evil laughing Naruto was doing. The boy really needed to tone down the whole bad guy vibe he had going. Oh well, I can always beat it out of him out here. Jiraiya developed his own evil laugh. Okay, Naruto. We are here, Jiraiya exclaimed while thrusting his arms outward. Naruto looked and looked, but all he saw was sand. He did not like where this was going. For the next couple of months, we are going to be camping right here. While your clones are doing whatever shape manipulation you want to learn, you and I will be doing a totally insane workout schedule. Jiraiya said with a smile. Naruto really did not like where this was going. Of course, in this heat, it would be totally understandable that any exercise you do will tire you out more than you are used to. I promise you right here and now. Any time you drop from exhaustion, I will immediately double whatever we are doing at the time. Jiraiya warned. Hey, he was a nice guy. He at least gave the boy warning. Naruto looked at his sensei. He looked at him some more. A little more. Then he looked out at their new training area. Then back to his sensei, who was still smiling. He leaked a few tears before bowing his head in imagined pain. Naruto just knew that this wasn't going to turn out good. 2 months in. 2 glorious months of physical training in a freaking desert. Naruto, while admitting to the effectiveness of the training, was still ready to get the hell out of there. So what if he could use his chakra to help keep him cooler? So what if he could use chakra to walk on sand instead of sinking? So what? It was freaking hot. Jiraiya watched his student with an indulgent smile. The brat was in a mood again. One thing that annoyed Jiraiya about Naruto's new attitude was that every now and then Naruto would just start getting all uppity. Naruto used to never get uppity. Now someone could almost set their watch by it. The only good thing was that it was quite easy to break him out of his mood. All one genius sensei had to do was offer a little extra training. Didn't matter if Naruto was acting out because of the training, Naruto would always snap out of his moods at the opportunity of training. Controversial? Yes. Did Jiraiya care? No. Jiraiya himself was getting tired of the desert, but he figured it would a couple more months until they left. Naruto still wasn't up to his standards with his taijutsu and physical conditioning. Though, from what Naruto had been telling him, his jutsu was almost complete. After Jiraiya had given him the basics in chakra manipulation, Naruto had started developing his new jutsu in private. Of course, Jiraiya could have easily snuck over and saw it, but he figured that allowing Naruto this freedom would do the boy good. It would also give him a surprise whenever Naruto completed it. Jiraiya liked surprises, especially ones. Naruto huffed as he finally finished the last semi-impossible task Ero Sennin had assigned him that day. This time all he had to do was dig a hole using only his hands, in sand, without chakra. Suffice it to say that Naruto almost rebelled before common sense took over. Ero Sennin had to have some purpose in making him do all this in 100 heat. Naruto wasn't yet ready to believe that Ero Sennin was just making up stupid exercises as he went along. Yet, Naruto had to concede that there were some good things that came along with all this bad training. One good thing was the rock-hard six-pack Naruto was now sporting. Another good thing was that Naruto's muscles clearly now had a lot of definition to them. Nothing too bulky, but an amazing mixture of finesse with strength. Ero Sennin had worked hard to make sure Naruto's muscles became just right. Naruto also had to concede that the training had given him a huge addition to his stamina. Being able to run all day in sweltering heats had to be a good thing. It was a good thing it didn't take Naruto long to get that down because Ero Sennin had kept his promise of doubling whatever he was doing if he failed. Instead of 1500 push-ups, Naruto had ended up doing 6000. He had failed trying the 3000 as well. Along with all the physical strengthening, Naruto's chakra control had also risen. Ero Sennin had made sure to teach Naruto several inner chakra flows that aided in keeping cool in hot weather. Naruto had made those exercises prime points of interest. Of course, Ero Sennin had waited a whole month before even mentioning the possibility of keeping cool with chakra. Naruto had blessed the man out that night. Overall, Naruto definitely saw a rate of improvement, and it made him giddy. He could tell that he was getting stronger. He could feel it. His new jutsu was almost ready as well. Naruto figured a couple more days, and he would have that jutsu ready for its first real test. Oh, was Ero Sennin going to be surprised when he found himself as a nice, happy test subject? Heading back to camp for the day, Naruto couldn't help but remember the very first, impossible, exercise Ero Sennin had given him to increase his strength. Flashback. You want me to what? Naruto shouted in disbelief. The old pervert had finally got insane. Did the man not realize that it was hot outside? And they were always outside, so how could he not realize it? Naruto just had to walk up to his sensei. Reaching up, Naruto peered in both eyes, checked his pulse, and tried to see if he was running a fever. Maybe some kind of disease would explain Ero Sennin's sudden madness. Naruto could only hope. Jiraiya had been getting more and more ticked at every action his student had taken. To see if he was sick. Did the brat not want to get stronger, and isn't my training the best in the world? Were two questions going through Jiraiya's mind. Finally getting enough of the charade, Jiraiya nailed Naruto on the head. Falling down, Naruto crashed into the sand. What the hell was that for, Ero Sennin? Naruto indignantly yelled. First the pervert goes insane, and now he is hitting me. What next? Naruto thought in exasperation. The thing that caused the whole episode was quite simple in explanation. The hard part came in actually carrying it out. Their first real day out in the desert was the same day that Jiraiya started Naruto's physical training while their clones were off doing clone stuff. Jiraiya had unsealed a strange-looking weight from his supplies. Taking the weight, Jiraiya had tied a rope to it and put it on the sand. Naruto's job, pull the rope. Naruto had, wisely, decided to see how heavy the weight was. Trying to pick it up, Naruto found a slight problem. He couldn't budge the thing. Try all he might, Naruto couldn't move it at all using his arm strength. After finally giving up after his 16th attempt, Naruto had looked over to see Ero Sennin laughing at his efforts. That wasn't very nice of him. Come on, brat. The thing doesn't weigh that much. All you have to do is drag it through the sand in a lap formation. I already drew out the lap size for you. Aren't I a nice sensei? Jiraiya asked quite sarcastically. Naruto looked to see how big a lap he would have to run, and then he did a double take. His eyes widened for good measure. What he was seeing wasn't a lap, it was a freaking marathon disguised as a lap. Ero Sennin, I can barely move that thing. What do you mean that it doesn't weigh much? And how many of these laps do you want me to do, anyway? Naruto yelled in annoyance. Jiraiya smiled. Oh, only 100 laps, for now. Then with a nonchalant air, he said, and that weight is only 2,000 pounds. I have much heavier weights waiting for you once you get this exercise down. Naruto fainted. He awoke after only a few seconds, but the sheer audacity of Ero Sennin's training plan shocked him too much. Naruto now knew that he was going to die out here. Ero Sennin had gone crazy and was trying to kill him. That's the only thing that made sense. Oh, and no chakra whatsoever. This is all you, kid. Now get to running. Jiraiya yelled out with a light slap to Naruto's back. Naruto turned around to look at his sensei. Jiraiya could easily see the desire to kill him in those blue eyes. He chuckled. Die, Ero Sennin. Just die. Naruto ground out. Wants me to carry thousands of pounds, sliding through sand, without chakra. Naruto grumbled. He slowly made his way to the weight to begin his torture. End flashback. The next day dawned hot just as pretty much every day in the desert had dawned. Naruto got up, fixed breakfast. Ero Sennin was too lazy, and then began training. Naruto had decided that a week's time would be enough time to fully develop his new jutsu. He couldn't wait to show it off to Ero Sennin. Going through the warm-ups Ero Sennin had devised, Naruto quickly picked up pace. An hour each morning had been set aside for warm-ups. They were specifically designed to make sure every single muscle was in use and ready for the strenuous use Ero Sennin had waiting for them. Finishing with vigor, Naruto moved on to what came next in his daily routine, sparring. Summoning 100 clones, Naruto signaled for them to attack. This spar was another idea of Ero Sennin's. The clones simulated the same conditions of being attacked by multiple enemies. Them being shadow clones, though, allowed Naruto to beat them using only one hit. The numbers more than made up for this, and Naruto always got a good workout fighting against himself. Naruto finished with the clones and went back to the camp. Sweat was running down his face as he grabbed a towel from among the bags. Looking over, he could see Ero Sennin getting ready for today's training. Naruto summoned the, now 16, clones to work with Ero Sennin's clones. If he wasn't mistaken, today's schedule was history, jutsu theory, chakra control, genjutsu recognition, tactics, stealth, and the other four were trying to learn how to create a storage scroll. Ero Sennin, what torture do you have planned today? Naruto called out. Jiraiya walked over to his student when he saw that the boy was through with his morning exercises. Naruto sure had come a long way from the little pipsqueak he had used to be. Now the boy was gaining confidence and muscles. Naruto was also starting to finally grow. Jiraiya had to give himself props though because Naruto's mind was finally beginning to develop. The kid couldn't have used his mind if it killed him 6 months ago. Now the boy was already thinking steps ahead of his opponent. Stuff like that could make a teacher so proud. Jiraiya wiped off a fake tear. I was thinking of all-out taijutsu sparring today. I still see some areas in your taijutsu that need work. If you leave holes in your taijutsu like you have, then any competent chunin will eat you alive. You're just lucky you have never gone up against a competent chunin. Jiraiya said. But I beat Neji Hyuga. Naruto indignantly commented. Everyone always says that Hyugas are amazing at taijutsu. If all that is true, then I shouldn't have holes in my taijutsu, especially after all the training you and I have been doing. Naruto claimed. Jiraiya nodded right along with his student's reasoning before saying, true, true. All you say is definitely true. But you have to consider that you won mainly through luck in the Kyuubi. He kinda dominated you when it came to the actual taijutsu part of your fight. Though I will admit that you have gotten much better in taijutsu. You just need a little tweaking to become even better. Jiraiya then walked off while waving for Naruto to follow. Naruto followed Ero Sennin until they reached the area they usually used for sparring. It was only a short distance from camp because whenever Naruto finished training, he automatically had to crawl his way back to camp. It wouldn't do for him to crawl a long way, after all. Ero Sennin was kind enough to not beat him until he couldn't crawl at all though. Naruto had to take his positives wherever he could when it came to training with Ero Sennin. Naruto started out the fight by summoning 4 clones. The clones quickly set off against Ero Sennin while Naruto stayed in the back. Each of the clones were quickly destroyed, but not before Naruto was able to tell what level his sensei was using on this fight. Ero Sennin had 3 levels whenever they trained together. One was easy mode. This was the level usually reserved for learning new things about taijutsu. The second level was, oh shit, level. This level usually left Naruto crawling back to camp at night. The third level was the, glorious torture, level. When Ero Sennin fought him at that level, Naruto had almost died. It was good that Ero Sennin had only fought him at that level once. Of course, Ero Sennin just happened to be using that level in this fight. Giving up on his deliberations and his slight panic, Naruto rushed in while summoning more clones for quick substitutions. Jumping high in the air, Naruto started falling above Ero Sennin. Summoning 2 clones, one near him while the other was slightly to the side of him, Naruto had the clone besides him throw him off his intended trajectory. The other clone grabbed Naruto from the air to throw him at Ero Sennin at high speed. Good, brat, good. Jiraiya yelled out excitedly. Do this kind of thinking in all your fights, and you will have an advantage. Just make sure to think about every move you make. Jiraiya quickly sidestepped the falling Naruto before punching the boy straight in the stomach. Hard. Spitting out blood after rolling through the sand, Naruto tried to create a new tactic. Damn, I know there is no way I can even get close at my current level. Should I try out my new jutsu? No, it's still not ready yet, and this is supposed to be taijutsu only, with clones. What should I do? Naruto narrowed his eyes in thought as he looked at his sensei. Running in a circle around Ero Sennin, Naruto analyzed his sensei from every angle. Before he could even think of a plan, Ero Sennin disappeared from his vision. Naruto realized that his sensei was about to attack him, so he ducked quickly praying that his guess right. He only realized he was wrong when he found himself on the ground from another punch to his stomach. Dry heaving, Naruto tried to stand up as it felt like his insides were collapsing. Blurg. Naruto ground out before bending over and throwing up. The sound that throw up made on the desert sand was not very appealing. Naruto managed to raise himself to one knee as he spat to clear the taste from his mouth. Ero Sennin wasn't holding much back. You need to think faster, Naruto. An enemy isn't going to give you all day to think of a plan. Jiraiya cautioned. The boy could be really good on his feet if he would just learn how to balance battle and thinking. From what Jiraiya had observed, Naruto could be really good in a fight if he was pushed to his limit. Once he tried to use his brain though, Naruto overanalyzed everything and ended up making a blunder. Moving as fast as he could, Naruto made a beeline straight at his sensei. I just need to get close enough, Naruto thought frantically. My shadow clone's limit is 7 feet from me. I know that distance is growing, but 7 feet is the farthest I can do right now. Naruto was betting everything on summoning a shadow clone behind Ero Sennin while the original fought him head-on. Jiraiya looked on as his student rushed him in what seemed to be a suicide charge. Jiraiya knew that the boy had a plan, but he wasn't sure just what Naruto had planned. Oh well, I will just beat him before he can enact his plan. Jiraiya thought with a smirk. Jiraiya rushed his student. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw his sensei heading towards him. Gulping, Naruto quickly made the seal and calling out his shadow clone. Naruto knew that he had already given his plan away, but he was still going to try it. The two met in a fierce taijutsu battle. Jiraiya quickly gained the upper hand, but Naruto was managing to hold on fairly well. Jiraiya was only mildly surprised, though, when a shadow clone attacked from behind him. Yes, Naruto definitely has a hole in his taijutsu, Jiraiya thought sourly. Dispelling the clone with a kick backwards, Jiraiya caught the punch heading towards his face. Naruto, not one to give up, went for a leg sweep after he saw his plan collapse and his fist caught. Ero Sennin jumped over the sweep, and then used the caught fist to flip Naruto over. Naruto landed on his back as an explosion of air left his lungs. Panting, he tried to get back up, but Ero Sennin hadn't let go of him. Naruto knew that was a bad sign. Jiraiya smiled down at his apprentice. The boy was coming along well. Naruto's taijutsu was around a high chunin level. What Naruto really excelled in though was his physical strength. Of course, it could not compare to Tsunade's chakra-enhanced strength, but what could? Jiraiya had known from the very beginning that one of Naruto's future advantages would be his physical strength. Ever since the boy was able to run laps with a 2,000-pound weight tied to him on only the third day, Jiraiya had known of Naruto's abnormal strength. No normal person should have been able to do that. Naruto was lucky. The Kyuubi sealed inside of him, healed him. Building muscles was basically breaking down the tissues within muscles, and, when they healed, the muscles would be stronger. The Kyuubi inside of Naruto automatically healed those torn tissues much faster than nature intended for those kinds of things to heal. This resulted in Naruto's physical strength increasing at a great pace. Jiraiya hadn't exactly mentioned this information to Naruto though. It's always better to keep kids in the dark. That way they don't become too arrogant. Jiraiya thought happily. Jiraiya delivered a chakra-enhanced kick to his student's midsection. Naruto needed to learn how to deal with pain after all. Too bad, looks like I kicked him a little too hard. The poor boy has passed out with blood dripping down his chin. How sad, Jiraiya thought mockingly. After a couple minutes of unconsciousness, Jiraiya started kicking Naruto awake. They weren't very hard kicks, but most people usually don't kick kids who have just passed out awake. Thus, Naruto woke in even more pain than when he passed out. Gah, Ero Sennin, do you have to be so merciless? Naruto asked with pain lacing his voice. Naruto had to speak in a whisper because of the pain racking his body. He knew that if he didn't have the Kyuubi then he would most likely be bedridden for weeks. The fox had its uses every now and then. So, what is my hole, arrow senin? Naruto asked impatiently. He wanted to have that hole fixed up as soon as he could. It really annoyed him that he could be beaten so easily, even if he was fighting against a senin. You didn't recognize it? Jiraiya asked surprised. He was sure the kid would recognize it. He had made the mistake right at the very end too. Oh, well, you need to learn how to use the Kage Bunshin without the hand seal. I could easily tell your plan at your last attack because I could see your hand sign. Same as when you took to the air. Your hand sign allowed me to pretty much know exactly what you were planning to do. Learn how to do the Kage Bunshin without hand seals, and your taijutsu will be that much harder to beat. Jiraiya lectured. Turning back to camp, Jiraiya threw over his shoulder, "You're summoning a clone away from you. That was pretty good for a brat like you. That was probably the best thing you did the entire match." Jiraiya could almost feel Naruto's happiness at getting a little praise. He just had to burst Naruto's bubble. Though you forgot about your clones you summoned at the beginning of the match for substitution. Naruto's face fell as he realized he could have avoided a lot of damage by remembering them. Make sure you get some rest. We still have a whole day of sparring at this level. You have 10 minutes. Jiraiya shouted out as he sat down at the camp. Naruto just panted in frustration. Arrow Senin could be such a freaking pain. 1 week later. Okay, Arrow Senin. Time to show you my newest jutsu made by yours truly. Naruto said excitedly. He couldn't wait for his sensei to ooh and ah at his awesomeness. Naruto and Jiraiya walked deeply into the desert for Naruto's demonstration. Naruto didn't want to mess up their training ground because he really had no clue how much longer they would be staying in the desert. This spot looks perfect, Arrow Senin. You ready to see a never-before-seen jutsu? Naruto was really excited. He hadn't been this excited since he first learned the Shadow Clone Jutsu. I mean, this is a jutsu that I created. Yeah, brat, Jiraiya lazily said. He didn't show it, but Jiraiya was very interested in seeing what his student had come up with. With that high-quality wind chakra and the sheer reach and power of it, Naruto should at least have an A- rank jutsu. The only thing that would prevent it from being A rank would be if Naruto tried to do something stupid that had no fighting purpose. Thinking about it, Jiraiya could see Naruto doing just that. Please, oh God, let the boy have not screwed up. Jiraiya prayed fervently. Here we go, Naruto shouted before raising his hands. Jiraiya was surprised, and very pleased, at Naruto's creation. The jutsu was very efficient. One of the best things about it in his opinion was that it did not require hand seals. That would obviously be a plus in any engagement. The cutting ability of the jutsu was also very amazing. Yes, the jutsu could be very, very good. Jiraiya was proud. Good, Naruto. I admit to being amazed, no odd at your jutsu creation ability. I won't call this jutsu complete just yet though. Jiraiya warned. At seeing Naruto's confused face, Jiraiya hurried to explain. You will need to increase the numbers as well as the speed before it is complete. You have mainly focused on the cutting ability and the shape manipulation, and it is very good in those regards. Now you need to work on speed and quantity. Once you get those down, I would probably consider this jutsu a high A, low S rank jutsu. Congratulations, Naruto, Jiraiya said with a proud smile. Yada, what are we waiting on, Arrow Senin? Let's get working, Naruto cried out. Jiraiya smiled as Naruto ran back to their designated training ground. Naruto was different ever since the duo left. He was much maturer, much harsher. The boy didn't laugh or good off much anymore, so Jiraiya was glad to see the little kid in him peek out if only just a bit. Naruto was only around 14 after all. Don't forget your physical training, Naruto. Jiraiya yelled out as he ran to catch up with his blonde student. Both started laughing as they made it a race back to the training ground. At least at this point, both master and apprentice were enjoying life and their pursuit of power. Naruto was so happy. Tears were literally rolling down his face. Ero Sennin had finally told him that they were leaving the desert. It was one of the best days in his life. Though time spent in the desert heat eventually came to be common, Naruto was still ready to seek out cooler climes. Thus, he was glad they would only be under a desert sun for a few more days. Ero Sennin had mentioned something about stopping at Sunagakur before making their way back into the land of fire and beyond. 3 months since he had first shown Ero Sennin his new jutsu. That made a total of about 5 months in the desert. 5 months. Yes, Naruto was very glad to be getting out of the desert. Ero Sennin, we can finally see Gaara, right? Naruto asked curiously. I can't wait to see how he has turned out. Looks thoughtful. I mean, at one point, he allowed his demon to rule him. Naruto said with confusion in his voice. But now, I think that Gaara will be his own person. I mean, Naruto said while laughing, after I defeated him, I believe that I really saw him rethinking his life. Jiraiya looked at his student. He almost couldn't keep the grin from his face. Oh, is Naruto in for a little surprise when we reach Suna? He. I can't wait to see the boy's face. We will see Naruto. You never know, Gaara might not have changed like you want him to. You should be prepared for him to still be a murdering maniac. Jiraiya said with a straight face. He was not going to ruin the surprise for Naruto. That would be mean. Jiraiya smiled. I guess, Ero Sennin, I guess. Naruto said sadly. Naruto didn't want to admit it, but he had to face reality. Gaara could still be the murderer he was during the Chunin exams. I hope not though. I hope that Gaara has changed, but if not, let's be off, brat. Jiraiya yelled out from the other side of their camp. He had started heading out while Naruto was lost in thought. Jiraiya saw Naruto look up suddenly before jogging towards him. They set out together, leaving behind their campsite of 5 months. Jiraiya knew that the sand would destroy all traces of their stay in a matter of hours. Ero Sennin, don't you have a spy network? Naruto asked curiously after walking in silence for 20 minutes. Jiraiya arched an eye at his student before answering. Yes, why do you ask? You have never seemed interested in my work before. Well, most of the times when I think of your work, is when you are doing research. Naruto said while making air quotes. Jiraiya let out a perverted chuckle at his student's gestures. I was just wondering how you were keeping up with your spies if you are always training me. Naruto asked. Nice observation there, brat. Jiraiya said with a smile. His godson was getting smarter every day. I actually have a simple solution though. I issued orders to all my spies to place their reports in a certain location. I then placed a delayed summoning tag in each place that is good for 15 summons. At a certain time, those tags go off summoning a toad. The toad gets the report, leaves behind the payment, and then I summon that toad later. This way, I keep up with everything going on, and I train you without any distractions. Good plan, right? Jiraiya asked with obvious pride. Naruto had to admit that it was a good plan. He was especially happy about the no distractions part. Naruto could just tell that he wouldn't have gotten any training if Ero Sennin had to always be off getting his reports. Yes, I believe it is. If only you could use that brain of yours to actually get a girl every now and then. Naruto lamented with a sigh. Yep, it's too bad that you're still a virgin. What? Jiraiya yelled. What the hell did you just say, brat? Naruto turned to look at his sensei with an innocent expression on his face. All I said was that you should use the brain in your head to get a girl instead of using your other head. Naruto said with an innocent look. The other thing you said, Naruto. Ero Sennin was still yelling. Damn, the man sure can yell loudly, Naruto thought while rubbing his ears. Oh, Naruto muttered with a light bulb going off in his head. The part about you being a virgin? He asked with a curiously. Jiraiya was about to kill his student. The damn boy was mocking him. Did Naruto really think that I, super pervert of the world, am still a virgin? I am a damn Sennin. I am a sage. The ladies flock to me. Boy, Jiraiya whispered dangerously. If you so much as think that again, I will make sure to train you so hard that you won't be able to move for a week. To think that I, Jiraiya, am a virgin. The very idea is preposterous. The ladies flock to me. The girls swoon around me. I am the sage of MT. Myoboku. Jiraiya-sama. Jiraiya shouted out loudly. I am a man who has tasted the pleasures of many women, and all have come back begging for more. I am no virgin. Naruto's sweat dropped. His teacher was weird. The rest of the trip to Suna was done in silence. Reaching the village, they were stopped at a big cliff by a couple of Suna shinobi. Naruto and Jiraiya showed their papers, and they were allowed into the Sunagaku. Walking through the streets of Suna was a new experience for Naruto. For one thing, he had never seen such uniform buildings. All the buildings were built exactly the same. All of them were designed for maximum efficiency as well as blending with the environment. It was kind of depressing. At least in Konoha, there was a huge difference in style throughout the village. The people in the streets were different too. Many of the smiles that the people of Konoha habitually had were not present here. The people seemed to be in a hurry everywhere, and most weren't paying attention to their surroundings except for their destination. I guess that people here are just more realistic. Naruto pondered. He made a note to ask Ero Sennin later. Looking around, Naruto was curious at where they were headed. Ero Sennin seemed to be going to the big, round building which Naruto assumed to be the cage's place. That confused Naruto because he had thought that Konoha and Suna weren't on that level of alliance yet. Suna had helped invade Konoha less than a year ago. Now Ero Sennin, arguably the strongest in Konoha, could waltz into the cage's office. Ero Sennin, what are we doing here? Naruto asked in confusion. He really didn't understand why they had even come into Suna. It seemed pointless. Of course he wanted to see Gaara, but Gaara could still be a crazy maniac. Patience, brat. Learn it, Ero Sennin said sharply. Taken aback, Naruto looked at his teacher in shock. That was rude. Walking through the cage's building, Naruto could see a couple ninjas shadowing them. It didn't really worry him since, well, they were about to meet the cage. Any village would have precautions in place just in case. Especially when someone as powerful as Ero Sennin showed up. Cage-sama, Jiraiya-sama is here with his apprentice. A secretary called into the room they were standing before. Naruto was getting slightly nervous. He was about to meet one of the, supposedly, 5 strongest ninja on the continent. The secretary opened the door fully for them before going back to her desk. Naruto followed his sensei into the room. Looking around, Naruto had to say that the room was pretty bland. There was no real adornments in the room. It felt like the room had been stripped bare except for the essentials. A desk, chair, 2 couches, and a bookcase were the only thing occupying any space. There wasn't even a rug to add any color to the room. Seeing the cage staring out the window, Naruto gulped. Firming his resolve, he stepped to Ero Sennin's side. He wouldn't back down in front of anyone. Thinking about it though, he wasn't really sure why he was nervous about meeting the cage. He never showed any real respect to either of the Hokages that he had known. Shrugging it off to think about another time, Naruto followed his teacher's example and gave a slight bow. Then Naruto received the surprise of his life, well, aside from Sakura and Sasuke betraying him. The man who turned to look at him and Ero Sennin was none other than Gaara. Naruto's eyes bugged out. He couldn't believe it. The same Gaara that had killed so many people from Suna. The same Gaara that was a bloodthirsty kid who allowed his Biju to control him. Naruto smiled. Gaara had changed. Hello, Naruto Uzumaki, Jiraiya of the Sennin. Gaara spoke in his monotone of a voice. Hello, Cage-sama, Ero Sennin said. Hello, Gaara, Naruto said. He couldn't keep the smile off his face if he tried. Here he was, Gaara, a person he really wanted to consider his friend. Cage, a Jinchuriki who rose up from being hated to reach the position of ultimate authority and respect. It was Naruto's dream lived out. He couldn't stop smiling. Gaara looked at the blonde boy in front of him. Naruto had grown. Muscles were now evident where before there were none. The naivety was also gone from his eyes. Gaara idly wondered what had taken that look from him, but he could take a pretty good guess considering Konoha no longer had any Uchiha to its name. Something else Gaara noticed about Naruto was an aura of competence surrounding him. He had been particularly powerful when they had fought, but Naruto had never given off the feeling of competence. The feeling Gaara had experienced back then was more along the lines of sheer stubbornness. You have changed, Naruto Uzumaki. For the better, I believe. Gaara stated. Slightly surprised, Naruto looked at Gaara curiously. You have changed too, Gaara. For the better, I know. Gaara slightly smiled at the blonde's words. It felt good to know that all of your hard work was acknowledged by the person who understood you the most. While it is nice to see you both, may I ask why you are here? Gaara questioned. It was not every day that Jiraiya of the Sennin showed up at the door. It was too bad that Jiraiya was also known for bringing bad news when he did show up at the door. Jiraiya watched in amusement as the two boys slowly sniffed each other out. He had gotten a good mental kick from seeing Naruto's surprise, but he soon got down to business. From the reports he had read, both of the boys had tried their best to show each other their ninja way. Naruto had come out on top and completely changed the red-hair kid. Impressive. Even more impressive was Gaara's rise to Cage after that change. The boy standing before him in the Cage hat was truly an interesting kid. He had to be only around 15 as well. Truly impressive. I am here to warn you of a threat in person. The Akatsuki is a group of S-rank missing nin. We have confirmed that Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki are both members of this group. We don't know why, but their goal is the collection of all 9 Biju. That means that they are aiming for the Jinchuriki. Jiraiya clarified in his most serious voice. Naruto had only ever witnessed this voice a couple of times. Once was when Ero Sennin was fighting Orochimaru. I am just warning you in advance. In about 2 years, they are supposed to really start moving against the Jinchuriki. I would advise you to beef up defense as well as prepare yourself for this ordeal. One of the reasons I am training Naruto is in preparation for their attack. Jiraiya said. Gaara looked at the man in front of him. Jiraiya had delivered alarming information. His reputation of being a man of bad news seemed to be accurate. Not allowing the surprise to show on his face, Gaara said, "Thank you for the information. Suna will be ready if they decide to attack." Putting the issue aside for further discussion by his top officials, Gaara looked to his guests once more. Ah, Ero Sennin sighed. Now that the serious stuff is through, let's get down to my other request. Tell me where the baths are. I need to do some research. Ero Sennin loudly shouted. Naruto sighed while shaking his head. His sensei would never learn. The man could be a complete idiot whenever it came to his research. Naruto could tell Gaara was getting agitated at the man's antics just from the way the sand was swirling around him. Maybe that was just agitation from their earlier talks. Nah. It was all Ero Sennin's fault. Oh, before I head to the baths, I did have one question. Is there any way you can give Naruto the Kase no Yaiba Jutsu, Wind Blade? Seeing the Cage's look of disapproval, Jiraiya hurried to explain. You don't have to worry about Naruto actually using the jutsu cough, much because I am hoping Naruto can convert the jutsu into his own little thing. Since I did give you that amazing information, don't you think it would be fair to give us something in return? Jiraiya said quite playfully. Gaara looked at the idiot pervert, legendary ninja in front of him. He could see Naruto Uzumaki off to the side with his face in his hands. Uzumaki was clearly embarrassed by his sensei's acts. As he should be. For Jiraiya of the Sennin to just ask for such a high-level jutsu from Suna like that. It was preposterous. The wind blade was a treasured technique of Suna. To just give it away. Gaara had to admit though to temptation. Naruto had changed his life. Naruto's light had shown him the way. Without Naruto, Gaara knew that he would have kept on killing until someone finally killed him. With Naruto's path before him, Gaara had changed. Now the village trusted him. Now the village had nominated him as Kage. Jiraiya of the Sennin had given him vital information as well. Gaara decided that a test was in order. If Naruto could defeat Baki, then Gaara would allow Baki to teach Naruto the jutsu. Basically, if Naruto wanted it, he would have to seize it. Smiling to himself, Gaara knew that his plan would show him even more of Naruto Uzumaki. Uzumaki seemed much more powerful now, and Gaara wanted to see that strength. The strength of someone who protected. Gaara wanted to see just how much it helped. Gaara became a Kage with that strength. Naruto had to become at least a Junin-level ninja with that strength. Okay. Gaara finally said. There are certain conditions though. Jiraiya's eyes narrowed when he heard there would be conditions. Things never turned out good when there were conditions. Naruto must seize the jutsu from the one who wields it the best. Naruto must defeat my old sensei in combat. If he does, I will allow Baki to teach the jutsu to him. The fight will be tomorrow at 11. My siblings and I will be the only ones watching. It will take place at my personal training ground. My sister will meet you tomorrow at 10:30 to show you the way. Do not disappoint me, Naruto Uzumaki. Gaara said, still in his monotone while dismissing them. Naruto shuddered, in excitement. If this Baki was Gaara's old sensei, that would mean the man was a Junin. Naruto knew that he was good, but he wasn't sure if he could defeat an elite Junin. I will just use this situation as a means to grow stronger. I will not lose this battle. I really have no clue why Ero Sennin thinks I should learn this jutsu, but I will win this. Through this battle, I will be one step closer to getting strong enough to reach my goal. Through this fight, I will get stronger. Naruto was positively giddy at the prospect of trying out his strength. Naruto smirked as he left the Kage's office. He couldn't wait to truly test his new jutsu for the first time. Ero Sennin said it was battle ready. Naruto would see if that was the truth tomorrow. Time to show the world what wind chakra could really do in the right hands. Next day. The next day came quickly for Naruto. He had spent the last night going over some strategies that he could use in the fight today. Ero Sennin hadn't been very helpful though. The man mainly suggested to not get hit by any wind jutsus. Ero Sennin had also given the okay to test out the new jutsu though. Naruto couldn't wait. Temari walked to the hotel her brother had sent her towards to pick up Jiraiya of the Sennin and his apprentice. She didn't really know why Gaara was putting on this match, but it didn't make sense to her. Why was he willing to give up such a powerful jutsu to people from Konoha? It didn't make sense. Jiraiya's apprentice is probably some arrogant bastard anyway. Gaara should have given me the opportunity to learn the K's no Yaiba over some stranger. Temari thought scathingly. She arrived at the hotel with 5 minutes to spare. Seeing no one waiting for her made her slightly annoyed. The least the two could do was come meet her at the door. Temari walked inside the hotel to the front desk. Hello, Temari said politely. Can you tell me which room Jiraiya and his apprentice are staying in? She asked. The owner of the inn was in shock. In front of her was the beautiful sister of the Kage. Of course, Temari-sama. I would be happy to. They are staying in room 34. Is there anything else I can do for you, Temari-sama? The owner asked with much flattery. Temari thanked the woman and told her that she didn't need anything else before walking away. Sometimes she really couldn't get used to the villagers' complete attitude change. Just a year ago the woman would have answered with a scared tone because people thought her brother must be with her if she was near. Now everyone was always nice and tried to do everything they could to get on her good side where the Kage would hear of them. It was almost sickening how fickle the villagers' thoughts were. Temari arrived at the door and knocked. After waiting a few minutes, the door finally opened, and Temari was surprised, to say the least. The person in front of her was none other than Naruto Uzumaki. The same boy that had defeated Gaara during the invasion. No wonder Gaara allowed him to try to gain that jutsu, Temari thought wonderingly. Naruto opened Gaara's eyes to the world. Without Naruto, Gaara would never have risen to where he is today. Naruto! Temari exclaimed. You are the student of Jiraiya of the Sennin. Naruto looked at the pretty girl in front of him. If he remembered correctly, this was Gaara's sister, Temari. She used wind jutsus during the Chunin exams. Yeah, Naruto chuckled. The old pervert has been training me for a while now. Temari, right? Naruto asked. Yeah, Temari said. She then rushed up and gave Naruto a hug. It was a big hug with her arms wrapped around him as far as they could reach. Thank you, Naruto Uzumaki. You saved my brother. Temari whispered into Naruto's ear. Naruto was shocked. He could honestly not remember getting a hug like that from a girl anywhere near his age range. Of course Ba-chan had hugged him good, but she was like, really old. This was a girl only a couple years older than him. He hugged her back. No problem. I am glad that Gaara changed. Naruto said with a smile. He truly was glad. It made him glad to know that a person who was so like him had changed with his words. It made him glad to know that Gaara was no longer a killer. Now, Gaara was a protector. After a couple of seconds of peaceful feelings while hugging, Jiraiya just had to break it up. He couldn't let such a great opportunity pass him by after all. Throwing his arms around both kids, Jiraiya shouted, yes, let us all love each other. By the power of hugs will all the world bow. Naruto couldn't help it. He started dying out laughing. Ha ha ha. The ridiculousness of his sensei was just too damn much. Arrow Sennin, one day someone is really going to destroy you because of your sense of humor. The stupidest things just come out of your mouth. Naruto thought with tears coming from his eyes. Arrow Sennin truly was something. Temari just looked at the man who was supposed to be one of the strongest in the world. After seeing Naruto break into what looked like painful laughter, from the stupidness of his sensei, she was sure she was really starting to worry about the sanity of one of the world's strongest men. Who the hell says shit like that? Temari thought inwardly. Naruto finally calmed himself down enough to push Arrow Sennin off of Temari and himself. His fellow blonde did not look amused. Arrow Sennin's humor took some getting used to, and medication. Well, now that the comedy show is over, how about we get going? Naruto loudly asked. Seeing Temari's quick nod, they both left before the pervert could get up. Running outside, Temari and Naruto made quick work to the training ground. Jiraiya was still on his ass. Damn kids. He grumbled. No respect. What is wrong with hugs and love for the world? He asked the world at large. Unfortunately, he found no answer. Deciding to finally get up, Jiraiya made his way to the lobby to find some directions. He had absolutely no clue where the training ground was located. You finally arrived, Temari, Naruto Uzumaki. Gaara stated. The training ground Temari had led Naruto to was slightly different than many of the other training grounds in Suna. The one they were at actually had a small spring. This allowed the occupants to practice water walking as well as any sweetened jutsu they had. Also in the training ground were trees. Due to the desert region Suna was located in, trees and water were absent at many of the training grounds. A personal training ground for the Sasuke and family did have some perks. Naruto looked around already trying to think of ways to use the environment to his advantage. His inability to utilize sweetened jutsus, and his utter lack of many jutsu really did not allow this though. Oh well, looks like it's just me and this guy. Time to show just what my chain jutsu can do. Naruto thought happily. Naruto and Baki each took their place in the training area while Gaara, Kankuro, and Temari stood off to the side. Gaara looked between each contestant before signaling them to begin. Naruto and Baki shot off at each other. Naruto knew that someone selected to be a sensei over the Sasuke's own children would be better than him. There was no doubt in his mind of that fact as he charged the older man. Baki would have the experience, speed, and jutsu library that were all better than his. Naruto knew this. That was why he did what he did. He charged straight on. Naruto's right fist was blocked by Baki's forearm. His sweep was jumped over. Baki turned his jump into a spin that aimed his elbow right at Naruto's head. Ducking quickly, Naruto responded with an uppercut to the chin. This was dodged too. Trading blows for a couple minutes quickly left Naruto with one thought: he was definitely outmatched. Baki was just better than him. Everything he did was either blocked or dodged, while Naruto himself had already taken a couple of glancing blows. Naruto did take satisfaction in the fact that none of those blows had been full-body blows. Arrow Sennin's training was paying off in spades. Naruto was at least keeping up with an elite Junin. Jumping back quickly, Naruto began gathering his chakra. Baki, sensing the chakra spike, jumped back to assess the danger. Naruto smiled. The man was not going to know what hit him. Naruto raised his arm, molding his chakra into a physical shape while grinding his chakra to the sharpest edge he could. Naruto unleashed his new jutsu. Kei's no Chen, Chain of the Winds, Naruto yelled. Out of his hand shot what Naruto liked to call pure wind chakra given form. With a color of sky blue, out of Naruto's hand came a chain of wind chakra. Link by link forged from the sharpest wind chakra Naruto could produce, the Kei's no Chen was a jutsu designed for supreme flexibility. The chain could reach great lengths as well as grow larger with more chakra. Naruto had devoted months to pure shape manipulation to be able to forge the chain, and he had spent even more time honing his ability to make it accurate and fast. The chain reached Baki with great speed. What the hell is this? Baki yelled out. He didn't know what it was, but he knew that it wouldn't be safe for him to touch it. Smiling slightly at the challenge before him, Baki's swiftly body flickered away. Naruto Uzumaki was becoming interesting. Well, more interesting. He had defeated Gaara after all. Naruto smiled. Baki had just fallen into his plan. The Junin appeared to his right, rushing towards him at full speeds. From Naruto's extended chain came a new chain branching out from the base. Baki was only steps away from Naruto. He tried to roll away, but he was not quick enough. The chain pierced Baki's right arm. Baki's arm was now bleeding freely as he stood up and assessed the damage from the jutsu of Naruto Uzumaki. Oh, did I forget to mention that if these chains touch you, you will be cut. Naruto said cheerily. Baki grimaced in pain. A freaking kid had just injured him. So what if Naruto was Jiraiya-sama's apprentice? The kid was only 14 or so. Well, Naruto Uzumaki, you have gotten me interested. Care to tell me about that jutsu of yours? I have to say that I have never seen anything like it. Baki called out. Naruto smirked. I will pass, Mr. Elite Junin. He said. I am not stupid enough to tell you the secrets of my jutsu which I am going to use to beat you. Naruto said in a sing-song voice. Naruto heard Baki let out a short laugh before rushing back in. Naruto smiled in joy. He might very well be outmatched if their duel turned into a slugfest, but Naruto was going to win with his very own jutsu. He decided it was time to get serious. Bringing up his other hand, Naruto called another chain. This chain flew towards Baki while Naruto manipulated the other chain into aiming for Baki as well. In midair from the base of Naruto's palms, many more chains spiked out around the central chains. Now racing towards the Junin were 10 chains of concentrated wind chakra. Baki tried to sidestep using his speed, but Naruto's control erased that advantage through sheer versatility. All the chains quickly followed Baki's every move. The Junin was now trapped. The Junin was now cut. Chains had pierced through multiple parts of Baki's body. Baki was down for the count. Naruto Uzumaki wins, Gaara stated with a tinge of passion. The match he had just watched had assured him of his decision. To protect one's precious people truly gave one the power to grow stronger. Stronger than any others. Gaara smiled. Temari was shocked. Her sensei had just been beaten by a kid. She could barely even touch her sensei, but someone younger than her had beaten him. Gaara could beat Baki, but he was Gaara. Following that logic, Naruto could technically beat Baki since Naruto had beaten Gaara, but still. Jiraiya smiled with pride. He had gotten to the training field in time to see the ending where Naruto pulled out multiple chains. The jutsu was something to see. Naruto might not have known it, but he had almost recreated his mother's jutsu. Naruto used wind chakra though, whereas Kushina used her unique chakra abilities. Jiraiya smiled. His godson was getting stronger. As agreed, Naruto Uzumaki. Gaara said when Naruto walked up to him. Gaara had already sent Kankuro to get medical attention for Baki. The man seemed to be bleeding pretty badly. You will be allowed to learn the Kase no Yaiba. I hope you use it well. Gaara stated before walking away. Naruto figured he had cage duties or something to perform. Paperwork or something like that. Scratching his head in confusion, Naruto left the training ground with Temari talking excitedly in his ear. Jiraiya looked on with pride. Naruto was growing up.